Suzanne, you can see the work session from up there. That's right. Tell everyone.
Watch out. You might want to go through this one. I think I got them.
Okay, now we've got to check.
If everybody's ready,
Yes, ma'am.
we will call the GMSD board work session to order. And I will ask the superintendent if he would like to take the first item, which is the MOU with the city for the GMSD administration building.
Okay. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. It's not very detailed as far as information in this MOU. And Ms. Owens, our legal counsel, and the city's legal counsel have both spent time in passing this document back and forth, along with Mr. Cathy's played a role in this process, and Kevin had to weigh into.
You just did. Thank you, Josh.
And so the basic premise is it's a similar MOU as what we've done with the computer. It should look similar. It's just like we did with the computer, because we can't take on debt. That we would pay for the initial cost of construction for the building, so that we don't have double payments in the same conversation we've had in the past. So just let me know. So remember, we want to move out of our current place because we have a contract that's just like our fiscal year. So it ends in June and starts in July, and our goal is to get out of the lease payments that we currently have. It's $156,000 a year. And so the objective is that when we have to start making payments on our new building, that we're not making the lease payments that we have right now. And so the way that we coordinated that with the city was that if we wait until July to essentially borrow the money, then that's when we start making our lease payments. So now they have to go to bond before that, but as far as when the money hits the bank, then that's when we would start making payments. So the objective is to, at the end of next year's, so we would have one more year in our current space, and then move into our new central office that we could just transfer lease payments over to mortgage payments. That's the
What would your
objective.
mortgage payment be about?
It depends on when they go.
Yeah.
You don't know that, and that's why it's not really specific. So they would go
Just
to
broad.
the market and see what rates we get. But because the city's the one going to the market for us, that determines the interest rate and what they're. So we won't have the exact details.
And the timetable, is it, I mean, what kind of mortgage are we looking at?
So it's a 12-year
12 years.
mortgage. So it's paid off very quickly. So that's the objective with the city, and that's the longest that they could do.
Do you see that our mortgage payment would be about the same as what we're paying?
Not for it's a combination of mortgage payments, so or lease payments, excuse me. We would have to take the lease payments that we currently have for our modulars at our schools and the lease payments that we currently have for central office.
That's what I thought we talked about,
If we had a 30-year loan, just like a house or something like that, then we could have fit it within the same, but because the longest that the city can do is a 12-year time frame.
I think it's better to get it paid off and then we can use the funds for something else.
Yes, and that's something we can work out too with the bonding. The reason we have the money that we could just outright pay this. We could do that. We could use reserve, and all of us know that that's not my recommendation at this time because we have other capital improvements and needs and things that may come up. When we go to market for the new school, we know that the market has changed and it may be more expensive. So that's why we're recommending doing this at all in a lease type of payment with the city. So that's our objective. So you can see specifically it says we will essentially fund the first 4 months. That's why it's a prediction of about $1 million on the front end. So that means when we go to bid, we're talking about going to bid in March along with the new school. And A2H is the one who recommended that because they said there's substantial savings in doing both at the same time. Their prediction was $400,000 to $500,000 that it could save with the mobilization of if you're doing the dirt work, you're doing the plumbing, you're doing the electrical, doing it all at once. And they also thought that it could push us into a different market for contractors. So if I've got people who want to build on a new school, I may get some bigger builders who want to do new school and central office at the same time. So there may be a positive effect for that also. So time frame is that we would then be going to bid in March, that they would break ground hopefully April, May on these projects. We would then be paying just like we did, for Riverdale. We kind of looked at the payments, what it would cost. We would pay those initial construction costs for the first 4 months. Then the city would actually have the money in hand from the bond sales, or it's not truly a bond, it's a capital outlay note, that they would have the money in hand in July, and that's when the city would eventually then take over that funding at that time. So that's why we have the district portion of the funding, and then we have the MOU portion of the funding.
Will it be the same process that they'll keep the money and we have to turn all the bills into it?
That's the way they have funded all of our
I was hoping you'd tell me to change.
projects at this time. Yes, we submit, so as contractors and builders complete the work, we submit
Like a construction loan.
a construction loan to them, and then they wind up giving us the money and then we pay, so it's a two-step process to pay. And so that's the objective for the MOU, is the way to pay this. That's why they added the 300,000 or 3.3 million, so there's an additional 300,000 there. That was their prediction on cost for going to market, interest payments. That's the additional. So if we're talking about a $3 million loan, they were predicting 300,000 in costs associated with it.
And so our debt payments will start in July.
Yes, and so that's our objective, is so that we could then, without having to pay lease payments for our current place and also debt payments on this.
They would start in July of 2018?
19.
19, that's what I thought.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have
Just
a year.
to clear that, yes, okay.
So when we're opening the new school, this would
So
happen.
the payments go in conjunction with the opening?
Yes, so we just moved from one lease payment, and the next month we would start our mortgage payments.
And we're looking at potentially being done with portables at that point.
Yes. So at that point.
Everywhere.
Yes.
That's right. with the new
Momentarily.
Well, yes, for middle school, the elementary portables will be gone, but if we're looking at middle school crowding, that's
That's
so
something,
that's
another
something else we're going to be approaching. So I
future
just
issue.
wanted to
Mhm.
say, yeah, because that's an additional cost that we're looking at going away
Yes.
in order to fund our debt payments.
That's right.
But if we don't get rid of them,
It's additional cost.
it's an additional cost.
So my concern is the $1 million coming out of the reserve. We have a lot of things on our plate. We have a meeting that we're going to go through and talk about all the items we have, middle school capacity, other maintenance things that are big dollar items. And at that point, you had said we would kind of go through our reserve and look at what we have, what we need to reserve for the opening of the new school, operating costs, things of that nature. And is there any reason why we can't ask the city to fund all of this, us upfronting the $1 million, but then getting that paid back as a part of the bond, so that we basically have an in and out and have a higher mortgage, so that gives us the flexibility and that access to to cash, in essence, instead of taking that $1 million completely off the table?
I think we could have potentially talked about that, but when I look at the predictions that Mr. Jones has for the reserve and how we're going to finish this year, the future projects that we have and the concerns that we have in our budget, any future issue would really be a capital issue.
Right.
And so this is the conversation that we've had. I think our objectives for our reserves need to be not solely for capital issues. If we have a middle school growth concern, I think our objective is to go to the city as our financial body and say, we have a middle school growth issue. We need, if at that time we need a new wing, we need a new gym, that's the conversation that we need to have. And so for me, it's not as much a concern because we've looked at what we need to operate our budget. It would be more of a concern for me to be locked in at 12 years with higher payments. And that really does, that would be a bigger concern for me than putting some down initially. I feel very comfortable with using this funding for this project.
Any other questions?
I'm thinking about the reserve and what it's, I mean, I think what I would like to see used in some ways, some of the reserve that we have that we don't potentially, I guess I'm following you on the capital. We don't need to be using our reserve for capital. I would agree with that. And those are some of the needs that are coming down the pipe very quickly. So we need to be committed to seeking that from the funding body. On the other hand, I want us to be committing to use some of that reserve that we have for operational and some of the things that we would like to do, whether that's additional guidance counselors or whatever, you know. If we're having a bunch of extra money at the end of the year, then how can we better manage it so that we're using it more effectively for the students, is my question. So when we go into the budget process, I'm going to be asking those kinds of questions, just kind of because I would like to see, you know, whether it's lower class sizes or whatever, more teacher assistants, whatever we need to see, you know, then that would be coming from y'all, what you would like to see. But I would like to have some of those conversations.
And I will clarify too that as a board, essentially what we have planned for is $200,000 to $300,000 a year going towards reserves. So the fact that our staff, and it's really the cabinet and the directors and the way they're conservatively spending, has created this reserve.
Right.
So I can't thank them enough for the fact that they have spent conservatively. Some of that, and so we're always scared to move into something that's a recurring cost.
I understand that.
So the way that and that's not a problem because we do the right things by kids and programs and teaching staff. But the reality is the way that we built a lot of this is through supplies and the one-to-one initiative that we are budgeting for the end of the one-to-one initiative, not the beginning, because that is a recurring cost for the computers. And so the fact that we phased it in, that allowed some flexibility with what we were doing with reserve and funding. And so over time, those types of revenue go away once we're fully implemented in different programs. And so what you'll see with each of the departments, I don't think, we're just scared that recurring costs are something that we try to look very carefully at.
And the mortgage payments is essentially the same cost we're currently paying out for the lease that we currently pay now.
Yes.
Which is, and the modular classrooms.
Right.
So is it fair to say that the Care for Center is, if it has not been purchased, it's being considered to have a new owner.
Yeah,
So we may
well, I don't know about a
effectively
new owner.
lose our
I just know
space.
that when you go there and see, it is in a transition period at this time. I don't know about the ownership or anything like that, but I don't know about our future ability to be in this location either. That may be a very short-term objective, because I do know that, especially when we were doing the whole analysis of what's going to happen in the city, that was one of the properties that it was in conversations
That's
about
right.
doing a smart development. So yes, our availability to be at this location
Ending.
is ending.
Yeah,
So we would have to decide something.
And
Anyway.
don't get me- anything that I'm saying here is, I think us going down this path is the right path, absolutely. I mean,
Right.
I think us having, the office, having it especially on a property that's close proximity, I think it's phenomenal. I think actually doing them together to save the money, I mean.
That's right.
That's just how this staff works, is they always think of how we can save money. But I'm also a very risk-averse person, and I don't like getting rid of savings if I could maybe borrow it on the front end and then go pay it off if I need to. So I mean,
Right.
I'm just asking the question to say, if we feel like, because you've mentioned many times that we have a lot of things coming together at once. New school opening, maybe not enough money coming from the city that can help us with that, so we might need to make some expenditures related to that.
That's right.
We have middle school capacity issues, we have bathroom, the list, goes on and on. So my question would be, is there any room, and I noticed that the prepayment, as hasn't been decided, that we build it for $4 million, knowing that if we can have the room in our reserve, we'll just pay it, and won't take that money. We can just have it as a flip, as long as there's no prepayment penalties. But have that option to have an extra $1 million to do something that we might need in the next 2 years. That was just the
Right.
reason I was bringing that
That's
up,
right.
is I just like, it's just my nature to be a little bit more risk adverse and have liquidity in hand.
And I think that looking at projections of how we might finish this year, we may be able to do it with just our BEP, the increases that we're going to see for
I
this
see what you're
current
saying.
year.
Okay, without having to dip in.
Without having to, we may be able to do it just out of
Okay.
this year's difference, and
Okay.
that's our objective, but
Now,
we
do
know that
we
this
have,
is.
do we
set.
have to contribute? If we sign this memorandum and we say we will contribute $1 million out of our GMSD, does that lock us into doing that?
What the city is saying, that they're going to fund the 3.3, and that is all they're going to.
Which I understand that, but I just
Yes.
didn't know if this first bullet makes it so that we have to. But you're saying that we don't have to.
Well, we have to fund $1 million, whether it's the reserves, or I don't think that
So what I'm
nullifies
wondering
the
is, should we change that to say, so that we don't lock ourselves into saying that it has to come from reserves if we can, does it matter? I don't know if
It doesn't-
for you, if it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, because immediately at the end of this year, the general
It
fund
rolls
rolls
over.
into the reserve
Okay,
anyway.
okay, I just
so-
want to make sure we're not locking it.
No,
Okay,
you see what I'm
that's
saying?
fair.
So-
No, absolutely fair, yeah,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay. Anything else? All right, approval of the purchase and installation of roof HVAC units at Farmington. Mr. Kathy.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is the recommendation that we're bringing. We've talked about the issues that we've had with Farmington's units right now. We currently have 3 down without heat that we're making do with, but this is one of the things that's on our capital list. It's one of the projects we've been planning for, so it's our recommendation to bring to purchase. This is all in. This is material, this is labor, installation, everything for the replacement of the rooftop units at Farmington through Train, which is actually through one of our purchasing cooperatives, US Communities.
Right.
So
Good.
I will be happy to entertain any questions that you might have about this recommendation.
When you say that that's on our list, that's what was on our list, that was a part of what was in our budget, is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, that's all right.
Yeah.
Because I
it's
know
in-
that you had and it's kind of one of those things you have to deal with the prioritization of, and see what's left at the end of the year.
It's
So,
in our 5-year
okay.
strategic facilities plan, and the 4 that we have been trying to work toward are, obviously that one, we've been trying to work towards Riverdale's boiler chiller situation, and we're still in the process. That's a big job, because, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that at the
Sure.
March meeting.
Well, that was going to be my next question, so good.
Those are the 2 that we have been working on
Okay.
most, and the The Riverdale boiler chiller has a lot of concerns that come with it, timeline being one of them. It's a big job. You were talking about demoing out boiler, chiller. We're talking about putting rooftop units up, cutting through roof, putting concentric duct kits in, the whole, the works. And our cost estimates are just coming in a little higher than we thought that they would. I would be happy to say, long term, it is absolutely the right thing to do for Riverdale. I keep getting emails from parents on days like today where the
You
weather,
can't, yeah.
the weather changes
Can't turn it
mid-season
on.
and we can't flip back and forth. So it is long term the right thing to do, no question, but we have 1,000 things that have to be discussed in that same context. So we are working right now on at least getting a proposal for architecture and engineering services, cost estimating it out, and then hopefully having that information to bring to the board at that March meeting and say,
Great.
this is what we think we could do. If the board says no, not right now, then we'll just replace the 15 air handlers that are damaged in the classrooms, because that's really what prompted us to start exploring this. It was what happened over Christmas break. So we'll bring that to you. We'll have a discussion. If that's decided we want to plow forward and we're going to find a way to do it, great. And if the board says, not right now, we just don't have the appetite for it, then we'll replace the 15 air handlers and that are in the classrooms. We'll stick with the boiler chiller system and we'll continue to work with it.
You mentioned timeline, but what would be the timeline for the Farmington HVAC? I mean,
The units will be delivered. What we'll do is, assuming the board approval tonight, we'll go ahead and get the purchase order done. We'll go ahead and get the units on order with a ship date of the last week of May / first week of June. We have a guaranteed installation of June 30th for completion of the work. So the job will be done by the end of June.
That's great.
Did Trane do the ones at Dogwood? Have they done the units before?
No, they did not do the ones at Dogwood. Those are actually York units. The Trane has worked with us before, but they did not work with us at Dogwood.
Did they do Houston High? Or is
No, those were also York
York.
units, and the installation was done by Damon Marcus at Houston High School.
He's been dying to do the work.
And
Any other questions?
Yeah. Did I miss? Did we go out for bid on this?
No, the recommendation is to go through one of our purchasing cooperatives, which is U.S. Communities.
Okay.
In the theory that they've already done the bidding process.
Yes.
Right,
Correct.
yes,
I'm
it
sorry.
just saves
Bid by
us
big
time,
group.
yeah,
I absolutely
exactly.
should have said
Yeah.
that on the front end. These things have
Yes.
already been competitively
Right.
bid. The pricing is for everybody, so yes, it's not like we're just reaching out and
Right,
grabbing.
right. No, but
It's
that's
our-
part of what you get,
That's right.
right? Is
You get-
the benefit, so you save the time and energy on that.
Absolutely.
And we can also tell by the price because of our previous projects, how
I was
good
going to
price
say, I
that
thought the
cooperative
price
had.
was really good.
Yes, it
Yes, no,
is.
the price is, it's less than what's in our strategic plan, what we originally cost estimated it at, so the price is good.
$200,000 plus.
Yeah.
Already started on Riverdale.
Yes.
saving up
Yeah.
Riverdale.
Yes.
No, this is great work, thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes,
Gallagher.
ma'am.
Okay, approval of the sale of surplus items, Mr. Pierce?
The hot
Good
seat.
evening.
Yes.
I'm
hot
sure
seat.
everyone understands everything on that list, right?
Oh,
No-
absolutely.
no
Actually, you
questions
read
at
my
all. All right.
question. You could see what I've written down. What the heck are these? And
This is all networking gear that we've replaced over the years since we took possession of the buildings. Majority of it is, we've changed direction and preparing for the one-to-one program support, and a lot of it was at the end of support life cycle for the vendor. So,
How much do you think these are worth? I mean,
I think it's all over the board, but I think I can get anywhere from 10 to upwards of 30 or 40 grand total for this whole list.
wow,
So
okay.
that's what I'm
It pays for
hoping.
the ad.
I was, you read my mind, yep. No, that's very good.
Yeah,
Thank
hopefully.
you.
So,
Any other
any
questions? Your time in the hot seat to be this long, Mr. Pierce. Thank you. All right, Mr. Jones, school fees and activity costs. Everybody's favorite
Yeah, I was
topic.
going to say everybody's favorite. So this is the update for the second semester. Any changes were highlighted in yellow for me, or for you. Several additions at Riverdale, and most of those are new clubs that are starting up.
And that's what I was gonna ask, is this so we update this every semester?
Every
Is the-
semester,
Okay,
yes.
is the process, okay.
Yes.
I had a couple of questions. The Dogwood ad for the kindergarten camp, it just struck me as odd, $100 to a new family for a week of camp, is that something that's done throughout the district, or is this something going to be specific to Dogwood?
That one is specific to Dogwood.
Are
Okay.
there other
The
camps at
principal's
other
discretion.
elementary?
Are there other elementaries do camps?
They have in the past, but they're all different depending on what they're offering and how long they are and the amount of time.
Do they typically charge for that?
Some have in the past and some haven't.
Some do and some don't, okay.
They charged $100 last year.
Mhm.
Okay.
And they had how many children this time?
I don't know that.
I think quite a few.
Ms.
They had
Falk could probably
9.
answer for us.
They had 9.
Oh, that's right, you had a building.
But I think our fee was $60 when we did it. Everyone,
At Riverdale was 60?
everyone came and we used to have other things as well. I don't know if we're starting to do that or not, but we used to have for other.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, and then, I was looking at the, Farmington 5K Club.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's $175, is that correct?
Yes, that's what the principal reported.
I think they go, they go to competitions district and
So
regional
that's
and state.
entry fees.
And there's probably entry fees for to
Okay,
attend.
I was
all
just
that.
comparing it to the sports club at Dogwood, they do races and things, and it's $45, and it just
Maybe
seemed
they-
like a lot.
They may charge the parents.
Separately.
Separately.
I mean, I'm just
Yeah,
guessing- I'm
you're
just
right,
guessing.
I was just, it just struck me as
I saw that too.
a
and-
lot,
yeah.
when right underneath it's like 15, 15, 15, 15, and there's 175. So I was just checking to make sure it was right. Okay. Is that an increase, or is that something, I can't remember from last year, that's standing out? Do you know?
I
I'm
can
sorry, I
check.
don't mean to
No,
ask.
that's all right.
Which one are you on? Which
Farmington.
page?
So would
Page
that not have
6.
been on this year's list if it was there last year? Would
It was
not already
just
have been
the,
on there?
Just the,
Just the dollar amount has
Changed.
changed.
Oh,
Let me
okay.
see,
and it may be because they are increasing their amount of
Maybe they're
travel.
doing more travel or something.
Mhm.
Yeah, he said just one change, it went from $100 to $175.
So there, it was.
They
an-
went to
it
the
was-
state last year.
Was an increase, yes, Dogwood did too. So it was an increase, that's a pretty substantial increase. Okay.
On the Riverdale ones, are those a combination of increases in new clubs? or-
Yeah, he said that there were several new clubs
Okay.
that were added, because I just posed that question to him generally. He said many were new clubs that they had established.
Yeah, it did seem like a substantial number from Riverdale added. But that's good. I think
They're
it's good
trying
to see an increase.
They're trying to offer what Houston's
I
offering.
think that's great.
I think that's important.
Yes.
And just something as we go into the, again, thinking about the budget and as we move into the budget, and I know there's really not anybody who does this, but just to think about, as we're starting to put this list together, we are seeing some differences between our schools. And is there something that we would like to do to kind of, I think sometimes when you link schools together and you can offer so that one family doesn't feel different if they're at one elementary school versus a different elementary school or one middle school or one or another, is there something to think about as we go
Consistency.
into the next? Yeah, just somebody asking the questions and, just even for the 5K, well, it's a difference because Dogwood gets pinged 5 times. It's separate. Just kind of having that dialogue so that we can answer those questions.
Sure.
And think about if we are offering kindergarten camps, is it something that as a district we would want to do? That we just talk about that, not mandating per se, but just bringing that conversation up so that our parents don't really have a different experience, if they're at a different elementary.
But I think too, also, we have to be careful too. I don't want to pigeonhole different groups.
Completely agree.
I'm
No, that's
sure
what-
y'all have experienced the same thing I have with my kids.
Yeah.
And a lot of these decisions that we were making, because I had daughters who did cheer, I had son that did different activities, was made by the parents in that booster club organization. And so a lot of those were choices like, do we want to travel to Carnegie Hall, or do we want to march in the Rose Bowl parade? I think one of the things that we have to communicate and make sure that we're saying is, whatever it is, that the transparency of those budgets for those groups, and saying,
Right.
here's what this fee pays for, here's what we're getting to do as this
Right.
group. And then
That's
as
right.
parent groups, the
can
expectation
decide.
for us in our schools is to say, I don't think it's worth it to go to this one trip.
That's right.
Here, maybe as a group, we should be staying, you know,
Well,
for
and I
local
think-
tournaments,
exactly.
different.
And also sharing that information even
Yes.
within the schools to say, we have this really great club, I'm just gonna make this up, at Farmington, and it's really fabulous. Well, now we can share that with all the elementary schools, and is that
That's right.
something that each of the elementary schools might want to take in, so that every elementary student has that same. So I agree with you. The cost and what they do, I think that parent groups do an incredible job of putting that together.
Right.
I'm just thinking of the experiences being similar
The
for our
school pro-
students.
so school
to
programs.
school, exactly.
So
Just
at
school.
So at kindergarten camps, things like
That's
that,
right.
with
Well, or
consistency.
even if it's a club that's offered that maybe isn't at the school's discretion,
Right.
but they know that there's cheer. Like, for example, you see that Riverdale added their cheer.
Mhm.
You know, so you have that similar experience for Riverdale as you do for
That's right.
Houston Middle, which I think is great. And I think we're getting there as we evolve. I'm just thinking that if you have that as an item that you want to focus on during 2018, it might be a good
Right.
thing to kind of get that.
And we could bring some of that into the budget development process. I mean, we've talked about it with the principals just recently. So.
Okay, that'd be great.
That would be great.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Anything else?
Because this is not for the faint of heart. This is a lot.
Thank you,
We
Mr.
have a lot
Jones.
of good groups
Well,
going
no,
to,
that's-
doing
no,
a
but
lot of incredible things.
But we also know kind of keeping a
Yes.
track of all of that is not an easy
No, it's
task at
not.
all.
The modification of the 2018-19 instructional calendar, Dr. Park.
Hello.
Hello.
We have conducted some research and received a lot of feedback on modifying the instructional calendar that was proposed and approved by the board for 2018-19. And I've developed the document that you have with some modifications based on what we're allowed to do by the state of Tennessee, what's best for our district and our teachers to have continuous learning and to really promote our vision of excellence always. And so I want to give you a little bit of background and talk about the changes that were made in the instructional calendar that are being proposed to you tonight. So just some background, Tennessee Code annotated 49-6-3004A states that public schools in Tennessee must go 180 days. You can extend your school day past 6.5 hours to include an extra half hour of instructional time, so that if something occurs like a natural disaster or an outbreak that involves health of students, or you can have approval for professional development for teachers for any of these stockpiled days, and so they're called stockpiled days. So similarly, like this year, we experienced a good bit of snow, and we had 4 days that we had as snow days. These were used out of the stockpile amount, which you can amass up to 13 per year. They don't carry over each year. But recently, we've seen some need with our teachers needing to have professional development time built in to the schedule. And we wanted to try to meet those needs because we know as educators that you have to continue learning to improve instruction in the classroom and ultimately to reach the goal of what we are here for, and that's student success. So when we looked at the modifications of the calendar and the allowability that the state gives us to make these modifications, you'll notice there were some main tenets that we kept in mind as we looked at the calendar. The first one was to look at the week of Thanksgiving. Historically, if you go back and look at attendance records on those 2 days that students are present, we have a lot of absences on those days. So when I look at adjusting instructional time, I don't do it lightly. I take it very serious because if anybody's going to protect instructional time, I will. So when I looked at these days, I also wanted to consider historical attendance on those days as well. And these seemed like it would be a good option to include those as days for students to be out, but teachers to come in and have the option of flex time for professional development. And I'm going to explain and go back through the steps of our professional development program as a district after I go through these changes. Sure. And then another request and some feedback that we heard were the exam days each semester. So these really only affect high school, but if you look at it, these are perfect examples of when we could incorporate district-wide opportunities for teachers to work together as part of a PLC for professional development, or great times for us to do vertical alignment between grade levels, or to try to get our schools together to where we have easy transition plans for those moving from elementary to middle to high school. And so we looked at, previously on the previous calendar, you had 2.5 days for exam days, and we have modified that to have just 2 half days. So you won't have 2 full days and 1 half day, so that you're only losing a half instructional day for that time each semester.
And the school could choose to give, for example, a 7th period, they have 7 periods at the high school, so they could do one exam on the day before that, and then they could have 2 days, half days of exams, so they could do 3 and 3. The school has flexibility to do that. We don't want to have to say.
Yeah.
So with second semester, an additional piece that we wanted to consider is that teachers came back and said that they really did not want to have to teach all day, have parent conferences at night, and then have a full day the next day. That was something where we had that issue, and we have it first semester, and we can't change that. On the previously approved calendar, we had a Tuesday as student conferences, parent conferences. Then Wednesday we knew was typically a church night, Thursday was Valentine's Day, and that Friday was PD Day. So instead of having that huge gap for that week, I'm suggesting that we move all of that back a week. And so that Thursday it'll be like it was this year. Thursday night you have parent conferences, that Friday is PD, or District Learning Day.
Okay.
So that's what you'll see in the blue there, the February 7th and 8th.
All right, on the bottom, it says February 14th for the parent conferences
So we'll change that.
on the bottom right.
Yes, we will change
Okay,
that.
so
It should be.
it'll be
The
the 7th.
Yes,
Yes.
February 7th.
And just real quick, in the past, the teachers, the way it's been is they've had parent conferences, and the next day has always been a PD day.
Right.
So it's something they have been used to,
Right.
and
they
they
have-
would like to see continue.
They
would
had
like
it
to-
last year, not this year.
They had it last year,
That's the
and
way
they
it's
had
always
it
been.
Okay.
And they
this
had it this
spring.
spring. Yes.
They didn't
Not
have
yet.
it this fall because we changed the PD day in the fall to be on election day for safety reasons.
Sure.
And so we wanted to continue that for the 18-19, so we're leaving PD day because it is, this year we didn't have an election in November, but this coming year we will, and we had the request from the committee to say, that's not a good time to have all different people on campus. We don't like that.
Why not?
And we need to have, the state law requires us to have a day of parent conferences. And so for us, you need to have, if something's going on with a student, it's best to get it in first 9 weeks rather than second 9 weeks to talk to parents. And so that's why we really couldn't adjust that one, but we can for second semester.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear. So last year, we had a PD day following conferences in February. Is that
Yes.
fair? Okay, that's okay.
And we did last week as well.
And historically, that's the way
And
it's always
historically,
been.
It's
yes.
always been that way.
It's just
And-
been that way since
And so last week, we did that as well.
So this was an attempt for us to, for the calendar committee, looked at this and said, maybe this is something we could adjust or modify and.
So I'm going to just ask a question. I'm sorry, being very slow here. I'm a little foggy headed. So is there any reason that we change the weeks for parent conferences this upcoming year? I mean, is there a reason why we're
It
not
was-
doing it the same year?
We tried to
I mean,
get
same
it
week, sorry.
around the same time and to align it with other districts when that's what the calendar committee wanted to do. And that week that was originally set, that we were looking at that other districts were saying they were going to have District Learning Day, because a lot of times we have our smaller groups like our theater, they get in with the other municipal districts to have Learning Day at that same time. Well then, so we tried to match that Learning Day so we could have
Yeah, okay.
collaboration. And when we did that, if you looked at the day before, because it was the 15th, was the district learning day
Right,
previously.
right.
The day before was Valentine's. Well, you
Right.
don't want to have a parent conference on Valentine's.
Right.
So then the day before
Yes.
was a Wednesday, and it's not a good practice to have conferences on a Wednesday
Wednesday.
night. And so then it was backed up to Tuesday.
Okay.
And then when I started looking at making the modifications on this and realized that the other municipal districts that we were trying to partner with had changed, and some had a district learning day in April for, and there was no way to align it.
To do
so
it
there was
all.
no reason for us not to try to just move it back a week and make sure we provide that relief for our teachers.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask the question because I don't know the answer to this. Is there anything that if we have 2 3-day weekends in a row versus 1 4-day weekend, is there any benefit, detriment to learning? Does it matter? Okay, that's all I'm here. I don't know.
No.
Just asking.
I don't think so.
Okay.
So just to go, those are the major changes that you see,
Yeah.
and they were all in response to feedback that we had received and still tried to protect instructional time. When we look at a professional development process for our district and what this request for this calendar would require us to do, last year I brought you the professional development or professional learning plan that we have for the district. So in the spring, we conduct a needs assessment survey of our teachers to let us know, and it covers all areas that we support at the district office. And it covers when would you like professional development, what kind of would you like, specific content areas, professional development. So we get a lot of feedback from our teachers with that survey. We also went through the advanced ed process last year and received feedback that we needed to have a formal professional development plan, which is what spurred this movement. So when we look at that, and then the teacher survey that Tennessee administers, our teachers, again, were screaming for more professional development time. We offer professional development, but when we do, we're locked into before school, after school, trying to get it into that small planning time that they have, and that's not long enough to really dig in deep with a lot of the material that we have. And so when we look at this year's process, and just to give you a heads up, we have a district professional development plan. It's based on Learning Forward standards, which are national standards. It used to be part of the national staff development, and it's the NEA is part of the organization that helps set these standards that help drive professional learning. And so when we align to those standards, then we align with their vision, which is to see excellent teaching in the classrooms every day, which aligns with our vision of excellence always. And so we've developed our district plan with feedback from the survey, feedback from administrators, feedback from every department. And then from that district PD plan, we filtered it to the schools so every school could have their own individual PD plan. And we have those where the schools are now aware of what the Learning Forward standards are. How do we make sure we target professional development and have it ongoing and sustained to make sure that we are really promoting strong instruction. And then as we move forward into this next year, it will drive down to individual teachers having their own professional development plan. And teachers are required to have professional development points or hours in order to renew their license. So it all ties together. It's all part of the big picture, and it ties together for us. And so when we have the teachers having their own individual professional development plan, then they are keeping up with what they are going to, and principals or administrators can help either assign professional learning opportunities for teachers based on areas of improvement, or they can even ask them to help present. And so we have a lot of options when we go that path, but it is all standards based. And so I feel like we're really getting a strong professional development plan together. But something that when we complete this waiver for the instructional calendar, the state requires us to complete a form which talks about which days we're going to use for professional development, what the plan is for that day, and this has to be approved by the commissioner. So we are locked in to, I mean, we can list multiple topics. I can go in and edit this as much as we need to. It doesn't have to be that small space. But then I can also attach our professional development plan or our school plans just to back it up. So like I said, when I look at instructional time, we're taking 3 days out from our normally proposed calendar. Again, we have extra instructional time built into the school day, and so we're allowed to do this. And I think that we can't have quality instruction without providing quality support to our teachers.
I think you're right. that we need to provide quality support for our teachers. Teachers only are their best when they are being trained to move and advance and improve. And I love the idea of flex days. I think that's great. And you know how I feel about semester exams. I haven't made that obvious. I will say I still am hesitant about the loss of instructional days, and here's where this comes from. I hear from teachers that they're pressed to stay on their PACE guides, or they're pressed to get through all their standards. I hear from parents that students feel rushed to get through the curriculum, or pushed to know things before they've really grasped it. Where parents feel like certain things aren't being done, whether it's a field trip or an enrichment of a fine arts visit from the band or the orchestra or the choir, because the principal says we don't have enough instructional time to put you in here. Or trips that some of our groups take, and they're getting pressure from the administration to put it on different times, like spring break, or not have any school missed because of loss of instructional time. And I appreciate all that, but that's when I go, okay, then why are we taking 3 days away? Now, when I looked at the calendar, and I don't want to change any of the blue, I like all of the blue. The only thing that I thought might be a compromise, kind of get us to both, so we have our cake and eat it too, is you see on the first semester, we end on a Wednesday. What if we moved and ended on a Friday, the 21st? That adds 2 days. And then on May 23rd, on the second semester, we end on a Thursday. If we push that to a Friday and we end on the 24th, that adds the third day. We're at 180 instructional days, and we still have all the blue on the paper.
But you've added days to the teacher's workday,
Contract.
so you have changed their contract length.
Okay, so what do we need to do? So the flex days that how does that work with their contract?
So those flex days that they have, that's the same number of contracted work hours and days that we have for teachers.
Okay,
You could show up on those 2 days, that Monday and Tuesday before Thanksgiving break, or you're completing the same number of hours of professional development to count for those days. But the
Okay.
total number of days that the teachers
them to work.
and the choice they have and they have to work is
what's the total number of days?
I'd have to look. 200.
200 and what? 200 even?
Yes.
And so we're saying that if you do the other way, you get the flex days, then in theory, if you only have to work 198.
No,
No,
you're still working
You
200,
still have to do
but
it.
it's
An
providing
example
a
is
choice.
Our department provides PD throughout the summer. A lot of times you
Okay.
have
Okay.
some that are, well attended, and
So
some not
outside
so
of that,
much.
I see
So,
what you're
and their
saying.
PD cycle starts for that year, June
The
1st.
fiscal.
So if they wanted to come in July for 2 days, then that means they would have 2 days where they could
Thank them,
take off
basically.
at that Thanksgiving.
I see what you're saying.
But that's up to them. to
No,
make
no,
that
absolutely.
decision.
Right, so
Yeah, we're
right
not
now, if they
requiring
do
them.
professional development
It's
outside,
just on their own.
it's just on their own, so it's additional work days that
Which
they're
is
not
why
getting
it's not
credit for.
very-
Which is
Not
Well
getting, and not
attended.
getting paid for.
You're not getting paid for it. It's outside their contract.
Well, I mean, lawyers and doctors do the same thing. They pay for their own professional development. If they go to Grand Cayman to go do that, then that's their thing. We just don't have that. I'd go to Grand Cayman for professional development. But I'm just, that disappoints me, because I thought that would be a way for us to do both. Because I'm very uncomfortable with the loss of instructional days when we've got these enrichment opportunities that I think, unless we get some reassurance from.
What do our principals think about the calendar? What was their feedback?
Everyone I've talked to is all the principals I've talked to were supportive of it, because if this is approved, it allows us to tailor some days towards the school. So if we're talking about flex days and hours outside of school, we could have some days that are strictly for technology. So if they've got to get 14 hours of professional development, we could say, we're going to get 3 hours, you need to get 3 or 4 hours in technology. that we could have school professional development meetings after school. So not the faculty meeting, we could actually be focused on their school improvement plan, our district-wide strategic plan, and say, for 2 hours after school day, we're doing professional development on differentiation in the classroom. And there's a professional development opportunity. So it gives them some tools and their belt as the administrators to add some of those quality opportunities outside of the school day.
And I think this plan is phenomenal from a professional development, from taking our teachers to the next level. I think it's phenomenal. I'm more curious what their perception or their feedback was related to the loss of instructional time, because again, as a parent being in the schools, that's a constant I hear.
Yes.
Whether it's from the teachers, whether it's from the principals, whether it's from the students, I hear just the echo chamber of, we don't have enough time, we don't have enough time, we don't have enough time.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, what is the feedback if you just look at it from an instructional day? Do they feel like they're gonna have to cut things, or they feel like pressure's gonna be put to not do this field trip? Because there's, and I'll just give you for an example, the week of Thanksgiving typically is the party week. Because in elementary school, it's a week when most people might not be there, so it's a good day. So you then have to move those parties, if you're still going to keep that theme, back into instructional time. In theory, true instructional time, because everybody's going to be there the week before. Is there a concern? Is there any? I just don't know what their thoughts are. I mean, I haven't had any conversations with them, but.
Mr. Bond, do you want to weigh in?
I've had,
I mean, are we gonna lose a
I've
party or
had
lose?
conversations with teachers, and they said that during the week of Thanksgiving, you only have half the kids there. So you can't do any instruction on that Monday or Tuesday. Their grades have to be turned in on that Friday for that semester.
I think that's the point.
That's the
is
point, is that Friday is a true work day versus could it be a party day, or is that going to eliminate? Because there are some field trips that happen also sometimes that on those
So what they
weeks.
do on that Monday and Tuesday is they play. They, read, or they play games, or they play volleyball or soccer, or
Or
whatever
have
it
their
is.
class parties, or go on a field trip that maybe not
So
everybody
that's
can
Monday
go
and
on.
Tuesday of instructional days that they don't even get to do instruction because half the kids aren't there.
Completely agree, but would they be willing to give up that day the week before?
I'd be more willing to give up an instructional day for professional development than a party. That's
Right,
that's
but then
where I am,
that's-
and I want them to celebrate holidays,
Right, mhm.
but I don't want it to take a full day. And I think in elementary, we've seen it expands because you do have a lack of attendance during these times right before a holiday. But if we look at quality professional development, then we can look at the pacing of, like, we have time to really have the teachers in the summer to really re-gauge what our pacing is for meeting the standards for the whole year. It also allows us to have more professional development on RTI and what it means and how you really have quality RTI time with students who are not getting it as quickly as the others, so that you aren't holding up and really struggling to get everybody to move forward. That's the point of RTI. And so I think if we have the opportunity to have that more intense professional development built in, where teachers will be more willing to be in attendance, then that helps us with all the issues that you brought up of, we can't, we're rushed, we can't get it through, we can't get our students to that point. This gives us the chance to have more feedback from the teachers throughout the year to really get in and go in and refine our scope and sequence and our pacing for our standards.
So would it be fair to say that even though you see a reduction of 180 days to 177, that parents and students should not feel a difference or a change in instructional time? Would that be fair? So that their year should feel the same, whether it's the way they celebrate holidays, whether it's the field trips that they get to attend, whether it's that they should not feel an impact,
Right.
because we feel like the additional planning that we're doing and focus will have our teachers better prepared.
Right.
So that the intent would be that the parents should
We
not
don't want
feel.
to strain the students because we're taking away time for PD.
Right.
That is not a goal and not something that I want to happen. I do want things to move more smoothly in the classroom, and you can't get that and get that consistency without having time to have the teachers meet. And so I think it's kind of a win-win. If we can do this There may be a few bumps in the road as we transition, which is why I'm glad we're just modifying this and not going full out change like the other municipal districts have done. But I think this is going to give us a great starting point to where we can have everybody on the same page. But I do not want parents or students to feel stress of losing 3 instructional days.
And I'll clarify too, I think some of the pain points that we feel with different groups not being able to do activities is because it is small pockets of students. So for example, if a band groups want to go to a performance or teams want to go to an extra trip, the instruction in the school is still continuing. That's the challenge with those different groups and different opportunities. It's not the whole school population. The pace and sequence of that teacher is continuing during that instruction. So when the students are gone, they're just missing instructional days. So it's that combination for those groups that are missing what everybody else is getting as
and
the
it falls on
challenge.
the students.
Yep.
It should fall on the students.
And Mr. Haddad, I think.
I think it's a great conversation that you guys are having, and I appreciate the board entertaining the calendar change. One thing that I've seen over the past years of being an educator is that and I think you guys get it, is teacher fatigue and work-life balance is real. And if you look at everything that's been added on the plates, that these teachers may be IEP meetings that consume the planning periods, maybe parents sponsorship based on the number of clubs and fees that you just saw. They may be giving quality of life issues, responding to emails after 4 o'clock, which I don't think doctors and attorneys do. And they're just, you feel it, and you feel probably a real sense of relief if what Dr. Hart is saying is really happening. There are so many systems throughout the country that do early release time or late start time, simply so teachers can catch a breath and collaborate with what they want to do with their lesson plans. Finland is a wonderful example of the amount of time that those kids are not in school longer than the American kid because they really value the planning time and the dignity of the teacher, working either solo or working together to prepare lessons to benefit children. But Ms. Jones, I do take your point. Hey, is it quality of days or is it quality of instructional practices?
Right.
I think there's a big difference. If you dignify teachers, the quality of days and the type of teaching that you get would probably have a huge benefit. Now, granted, it's still early and you have to collect data and you have to figure out that have the data assessments and standardized test scores dropped or dipped because you gave up 2 or 3 days throughout the course of the year for teaching to collaborate and be professional. So I really appreciate the board taking a look at this and Dr. Park leading the charge on it because I think it would really have value. I think there's accountability and you don't want teachers not to be accountable.
That was my next
for
question, yeah.
And that's on us. That's on us to hold these teachers accountable for professional development as value, to make sure that the quality of the classroom has the kind of pacing, the assessments that are lined up, but the other piece that I think is really live and real that has not been touched upon is the social emotional health of the child. I think it would be wonderful to take a break during Thanksgiving for the value of that family unit or for that family to recalibrate. So those things need to be considered as well. But I say that because the guidance counselors or the school counselors probably need time to also collaborate on, hey, where are we on flagging some of these students that are showing indications of depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation. I think it's bigger than just the classroom. It also goes to those experiences.
Well, I think that's a very good point, Ms. Shadows, that I'm assuming that this is bigger than just the instructional teachers. This is the ability for all staff, all specialists, everyone to have the time, right, to be able to recalibrate.
Yeah,
and
the
to
guidance
rethink.
counselors are under the same
Right.
expectations.
Would our staff, that is our secretaries, our financial secretaries in the schools, would that be lost days of pay, or will that be, I mean, will they be at the office, or our hourly staff?
Right.
Would they lose days of pay for these 2 days?
No,
You
so
don't
this-
want that to happen,
no,
but
so
will it
this-
be?
No. So our objective would be that this is an opportunity for us to do incredible things on those days of instruction, working with staff for them to
Right.
find time. Whether we're talking about the nurses to go through their caseloads.
Right.
It provides
Okay.
a lot of opportunities
So
for us.
So with the
involved
hour-
in this cost would also be, I mean, we would be funding those positions, because.
Yes, because there's no
some
change in
PD
the
days
budget.
they don't.
There's no change in the budget based on this calendar.
So if if it says in service, that means everyone, that's a day for them.
It's an operational.
Mhm.
Right.
I think you
Would
could
that
do
be
so
fair?
much, I think you could do so much training for paraprofessionals.
Yes, well,
Oh,
that's what
no,
I'm-
I agree. I
I'm
just want to
not-
make sure that they're not, because I do know
I
that.
didn't want them to lose
I don't want them to
money
lose
because
days. I don't
we're-
want to cut 3 days
You
off
know
of
what I'm
their,
saying? That would
Yes.
be-
I mean, because that's
more
big,
essential.
that's big money.
But you have the
Yeah.
flexibility to bring the paraprofessionals in service week.
I think it's
Even if
huge.
they're out those days, to
Yeah.
get them trained before
Yes.
school starts.
And my other question was, how are we tracking the hours? Is that something that's going to fall to the teachers, to the school level? In
So
order to
they're-
make sure that they're not just, that they're meeting their requirements in order to
So
have
we
those
have
flex days?
several things in place. So we have currently My Learning Plan, where we put in all of our professional development opportunities. Teachers register for any opportunities there. And then we'll have sign-in sheets at the PD sessions so that we can track it, because we know that sometimes you may register for something but not be able to attend. And then it'll tie into that individual professional learning plan that the teachers will have. That feeds into the school plan, that feeds into the district plan. So there will be a few pieces together. The only new piece of that would be that individual learning plan for the teacher, but everything else is already currently in place.
So to your point, who would be the person that would say, yes, you've earned your flex days? I mean, are we adding another step, unfortunately,
Is
to
the principal
administrative?
gonna
Is
do
the
it,
principal
or-
has
Well,
to
we already
say-
have My Learning Plan in place. It exists now so when they're looking and improving field trips, when they're looking in teachers, so this already exists.
So when teachers.
Oh, no, I know that. I'm just saying, but you have to have so many to be able to qualify for the flex days. Is that
Right.
accurate?
Right.
So who signs off and says, yes, I agree, you don't have to come in on Monday
It
or
would be the
Tuesday?
administration.
The school
And
The
they
school
are-
administration,
And they
okay.
see,
They already
like, they
monitor
see
it.
that
They're
as.
hooked into the system. They
That's what I'm saying,
monitor
but
it.
it's just one more step for, I mean, I know it's one more step, but a good step, but I mean, it's something that they would have to make sure that they're monitoring. But the system, to your point, already exists for them to
Right,
look at.
and they have to sign off on it as well.
Right.
I think my question, I think you answered, because I go back to, my concern is that we are offering quality PD, because if I go back 5 or 6 years ago,
Yes.
they would bring me their sheet, and if they didn't, I docked and pay.
Right.
But it was not, I don't think as valuable in depth. And so that's, in your going everything, it sounds like this is definitely something that's going to be.
Yes.
Professional development shouldn't be about compliance.
Yes,
It should
that's
really be.
That's what it used to be with Shelby
It
County.
needs to be meaningful and relevant, and so that's something that we're really trying to strive to move towards, is get away from compliance and hit the
I
target
appreciate it.
areas
Thank you.
that we need.
Yep.
And so just to make sure that the principals, administration, that we feel that the reduction of the instructional days should not be felt, should not add stress to teachers, students, or really the parents shouldn't feel that, or the students shouldn't necessarily feel that. And
Right.
if anything, they should feel it better, because as we evolve through next year, we should see the benefits of, to Mr. Haddow's point, just the teachers feeling better about where they are and feeling more prepared.
Well, I mean, I feel like the 2 of the days that you're taking, the Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving, the teachers can't teach anyway at full, because half the students are gone. So they really can't be teaching, I mean, they are to some degree, but they can't really
They can't have a
cover
full
everything
detailed
because they
lesson.
don't have full class.
Is that
Okay,
everybody's?
we've beat this horse enough.
Yeah.
Everybody's
Just real quick,
question?
the total number of days at the bottom is 190.
Where, all across?
177, yeah, 5.
Yes.
Where's the extra 10?
The extra 10 are the 10 built-in days for teachers, so that would be the
Holidays.
week of spring
Okay,
break.
the 10 holidays. Got it. Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Thank you,
Just
Dr.
kidding,
Clark.
just kidding.
Thank you.
Poor Dr. Park, she's gotten picked on a little bit. Sorry
She's
about that.
She's all good. She's got
Okay.
it under control.
Tenure recommendation, Mr. Hadow. Hopefully we can, I'm the clock one too.
An update on tenure, I think
love
you
it.
have 23 names that are up for tenure recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
Just to refresh your memory, tenure is tricky. Because if you came over from another district and it was your 4th year, those 4 years count towards tenure considerations.
Right.
It's the last 2 years, year 4 and 5, that we're looking at. Did they score level 4 or level 5 with level of overall effectiveness? So if you see some names, or hey, this person's only been in our system for 2 years, well, they may have been somewhere else to hit that threshold. What we'd like to do, and I want to thank Alyssa for generating the list. She and I worked to make sure that we had this list right. We shared this list with principals to make sure that they went over it, to make sure we didn't leave anyone off. And this was a while back. We did get information at our last personnel conference that the state of Tennessee has in the fall, that Chuck Cagle, who's one of the attorneys that I think works for the State Department of Education,
Yep.
he said that tenure is in effect not, this is a recommendation. It goes in effect next fall, start of next school year. So be aware of that. And I say that not to create fear, but a principal has the right to non-renew a non-tenured teacher for whatever reason by law. So even though we go through this recommendation, they still could be non-renewed based on how they close out the school year, because things do come up. But what we'd like to do is give you guys the list. I think that March, if you want us to do if you want to say, hey, we're good with the list and you don't have any questions, we could recognize these people at the March board meeting, or we could wait until, I don't know, until April. I think we're doing the school snapshot event, and we're only doing the work session that day. But correct me if I'm wrong. So it could either be March or May that we celebrate these people. So I think that may be a decision point that the board may want to make.
Maybe
trust y'all
superintendent,
to-
whatever
y'all
you think
discuss
with
it.
the agenda, whatever you think.
I still think you go ahead and do the official approval, and the celebration we could just have as a recognition.
Yeah, no, I'm just, whenever it fits into either March or May, is what you're saying.
You're
Yes.
fine with either one?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Any other questions of Mr. Haddow?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haddow. Okay. Final thing on our work session agenda is the annual review and revision of policies after first reading. We'll begin with you, Ms. Huffman.
And I know I'm going a little early because I don't think this was due until April is when I reviewed it last year. But just noticed some different things in policy 4.202 and 4.614. That doesn't, when someone else had another set of eyes on it, brought to my attention some inconsistencies. So what I'm wanting to do with this policy is combine the two so it flows better to where when we mention a restraint, then it talks about exactly what isolation and restraint is. I think there was a late correction sent to Ms. Supervani. Page 3 was eliminated. So did y'all have questions for me?
So page 3, the responsibility clause is eliminated.
Nope.
No, actually,
You've got the new one.
copies,
It's been
you had the new
changed.
copies.
Gotcha.
But if you had
was
reviewed it
inadvertently
before
read off.
Okay.
Got it.
There were 4
was-
pages, we eliminated the entire page 3 to flow. It was just a insert. So,
Any
it has 3
questions?
pages now.
No, ma'am.
On the revisions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Department of Finance, Mr. Jones.
First, you have FM 2.201, line item transfer authority. Just made revisions or enhancements to document our practice regarding or distinguishing between budget amendments and budget transfers. So budget amendments are what you see at the various board meetings where we may be transferring money from one department to the next, such as regular instruction to special ed, additional funding such as federal programs or a grant or additional positions. We also do budget transfers from one line item to the other, such as travel to office supplies, and those are approved by the superintendent.
Is this currently how it is, or?
Yeah, it's currently how it is.
And so it's just
It's just
formalizing
updating it, yeah, formalizing
Got
it.
it.
And this was, I guess, at the direction of the Tennessee Department of Education.
Absolutely.
And TSBA has signed off on
you want to go over, any questions on that? Okay. You want to do policy 2.400? Revenues, gifts,
Yeah,
and
just
requests?
a couple changes there. You'll see highlighted in yellow.
Very slight.
Line
Just
6,
clean
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It should be state instead of district.
Because I think we'd already, we went through this.
Yeah, 18, 19. We actually only collect, or the schools remit textbook funds to the district.
What about laptops? Is
Yeah.
that part of the equipment in line 18?
Well, I guess that's more of an insurance.
Oh.
That actually does come into the district.
Okay.
Sometimes if it's remitted to the school, we'll detect that and bill the school for it. And then Mr. Pierce uses those dollars to make the repairs.
Any other questions? Okay, deposit of funds.
Just one quick correction or clarification. Line 6 should read banking days.
Instead of 3
Per-
days, it's
Yeah. and
So Sunday doesn't count against us.
Per state
Yes.
requirements, so.
Makes good sense.
Very good sense.
Any questions, and any questions on any of the other policies that do not have any changes recommended?
I actually have one bit of information that Ms. Jones, you'd asked
you,
about
yes, sir.
the hearing authority list.
Yeah.
TSBA manages that list for us.
Okay,
And
okay.
so what they do is they find lawyers, and there are also judges listed on here
Oh, wow,
who
okay.
would serve in that capacity for
Okay.
us because they have experience with educational law.
Perfect.
And so I have the list for you. It's also on the TSBA's website.
So
We've
so
seen
that's
this-
everybody, so everyone would have that, not just our board. It's not a list for just our board.
Yes.
Right,
But-
okay, okay,
but
that's what I
if
was
we-
getting, okay.
If we had a situation where we were having to look at
Sure.
revoking tenure or
Yeah,
have a situation,
yeah, okay.
then the board would have the option to choose.
Choose from this list.
And that would be our
Okay,
recommendation.
okay, very good,
too.
okay, thank you for that. Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Appreciate
Jones.
that.
Mr. Hadow, you want to take over?
Just a couple of HR policies. One is I think 5.200. That is to align with a previous policy that we approved upon. The
Yes.
language in that policy has to do with retired teachers and how many days they can serve. I just wanted to make the two policies consistent.
Sure, sure.
The other one is a new policy. To find it, separation practices of non-tenured, suspensions, dismissals, resignations, and retirements of all persons who are employed in positions for which no teaching license is required. That needs to be a policy in case we do have to decide to terminate an employee. It's not a certificated teacher. So I think the policy is important to have in place.
And this is,
This is the, go ahead, Amy.
this is specific to the district office, or is this specific to all non,
All.
all non?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
So those are the two.
And is this something that TSBA recommended, that we didn't have part of their review, or?
This is something that, due to a current reality and talking to legal counsel Deborah Owen, yeah, we better have this policy in place.
Okay,
But it is the TSBA.
okay, okay, I just didn't know if that was.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think the other one is just a number change so we can get this policy in. I think that advanced degrees, nothing changed in that except for the number.
Just real quick on the 5.202. So the superintendent has the ability to suspend or dismiss all of the non-licensed
Yes.
staff. So on the school level, though, does the principal not have the ability to?
They don't have hiring or firing authority at the school level. All of those, they make recommendations to the
They make
superintendent
recommendations
for all
and
positions.
for all
Okay.
positions. Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were, so
It all comes through
anything.
the.
Yes.
If the principal sees a non-certificated staff member that's having issues, she would approach you about that.
They make
and just
recommendations
make a
to the HR
recommendation.
department.
It would be,
Yes.
it would be.
And then
Right.
reviewed,
I just want to
and
make
then-
sure
Yes. And then we're making, in the HR department,
With
really
the-
making sure that we have crossed all of our Ts
and dotted all the
Right.
lines.
Yes.
Before
Yes,
anything
and I
is
think
done.
Before we would move,
It's
yes.
good that we have.
And there's no amount of notice we need to give. We just give them a notice. Because I noticed that in the front part, there's no, but it's just, for resignations, there's a
10 day.
10-day, but for suspensions or dismissals, it can be just immediate. There is no
You're an
notice.
employee
I
at
just want to
will.
make sure I
You're
knew.
an employee at will.
Yeah.
They don't have contracts like the teachers.
Okay.
Anything else?
Anything else? Other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Haddow.
You're welcome.
See, y'all sped up.
It's pretty good fast.
Is
There
there
was
anything else you want to
Just a
add to our?
budget calendar. Remember, we had been
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
looking at that. You want to pass them around?
Yes.
Instead of me throwing them. Short one.
No, I think we're good. Good.
I do know from talking to Mr. Jones that this is the sixth draft. Coordinating with the city can, is.
Oh, yes.
And I'm sure it's not the final. I'm sure that there will have to be an adjustment. You know,
And-
we're all beholden to the State Department when they're going to give us our revenue projections. So,
Oh, yes. So do know that when it is important for the board to be in attendance, such as on our FAC night evenings, that's on your board calendar. So you can look at your board calendar. I don't think any of those dates change.
no, it should align with the board
It should
calendar.
align with the
So, but we don't really, so what dates do we have as a board that we're meeting to go through?
So we have
The
the
411?
411 board
budget
work
work
session and 416 for the general purpose. Then we have a 5-7 for second and final reading of the budget. And that's that's our first reading for the,
Sorry, is that me?
yes.
Go to your computer.
There we go. So, but we have a meeting in March, right? On March 1st to go through CIP?
Yes. Yeah, so that's not,
So I just,
that's not listed
so
here.
3-1.
3-1.
Yeah, that's the
meeting.
capital,
No, that's
yeah.
right. So that's a CIP.
That's a work session.
Board work
That's your
session.
work session.
And,
So I told you it wasn't the last one.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
the budget.
well.
This is the budget
capital,
calendar.
It's
Yeah.
a
Well,
work
but
session.
it's budget for CIP, right? Isn't it?
It's just a
It's the
capital.
priorities.
We're going to set priorities and discuss.
But that's not gonna be what we're gonna, so when do we talk about what we're taking to the city for the FAC?
But the
27 meeting?
FAC 27 meeting isn't a budget discussion either. It's just about capital. Now, it has budget implications that you're asking the city for to
Right.
fund this project,
Okay,
or
so
this
that's what
project, or this
I'm
project.
thinking more of a CIP, that's part of their budget process, so that's a,
That's right,
a
but it's not
meeting.
part of our budget process, besides the fact that here's this project and there's an estimation of what we think it's going to cost.
Sure.
Um,
And just trying to be a little bit more proactive and trying to maybe have time to digest and think about, is there any way that we could have another meeting other than the 411 where we talk about on a larger picture, you know how you're getting on March 1st, you're sending out to the principals kind of what they're looking for, what their needs are, so that we have that discussion at a board level as well, so that when we go into 411, it's not a, oh, well, I had thought about this, or have we thought about that, when it's just a week before we're going to be voting on the final revision. Is there an opportunity to have that kind of dialogue from an operating perspective versus a capital?
For us, I would say that the role of the superintendent is to create the budget for the board.
Do not disagree.
And so that's why that's that opportunity to discuss those.
So is that enough turnaround time if we ask questions that maybe, I mean, I don't know. I'm
Yes.
just-
This is consistent with what we've done in the
When
past.
last year we had 2 meetings, I went back and we actually had a meeting where we did a wish, it was like a wish list. So we did a meeting where we talked about our wish list and what items we would think about if you wanted to put it out there. And I thought it went along with the department heads when you were going through that. And then we came back and you said, okay, I heard your wish list, but now that we boil it all down, these are the things, and you kind of went through, these are the things that we added in. So they're kind of a 2-step process so that we talked about big picture items. Am I remembering
You are,
correctly?
you are remembering.
And so I just think that it could be beneficial to have, and I'm not saying that we're building a budget, I'm just saying that we're asking questions and just saying these are the things that, as a district, if we're going down, are these just things we'd like to put on the wish list? And I think we did that last year. And I just thought it was beneficial because then we didn't have to have that dialogue when you came back to us and said, well, this is what we have room for. So that it made the dialogue quicker, I thought.
We could, the challenge that I see is that we have been living in a period of time where we are growing programs and projects, and there was all this extra money for different projects in the wish list. I don't predict that this is going to be that type of budget year. I believe that, and I'll go ahead and tell you, my request is that whatever funding increase we can have, that we put into a COLA for our staff. And we talked about this when we talked about what other districts have done and what we've seen across the state and what the governor has tried to do as far as funding. We haven't seen that direct flow to our teachers, so that would be my recommendation at that time. Based on what we're seeing with our predictions of our budget, that may be as far as we get with dreams and wish lists.
And I understand that, but my concern is that for us to have an open dialogue, to be prepared, and y'all have heard me say this before, but I think we need to ask the city. I mean, if there are certain things, and I think for us to say that we just don't have any money and this is all we have and we're going to put it towards that, we as a board, I think, should talk about with our administration, what are the things we need? Do we need more counselors because of the issues that are going on in our schools? Not our schools, but schools nationwide. Do we need to get really serious about reducing our class sizes? Do we need to fix the bathrooms? Do we need to do this? What are all those things that we feel to be excellence always that we need to do? Not saying that it's going to go in the budget, not going to say that we're going to be able to find that revenue, but it could be a discussion item that we go to the city to say, we would love for you to increase our maintenance of effort. If we could do these things, this is what we would do with it. If you could give us, I'm just making numbers up, if you could give us an extra $300,000, this is what we would do with it. It's real, and we can make do with that. I just think that if we don't do that as a board, and I think it's okay for us to come up with things the city can't fund, and for us to say that's going to be on our wish list for next year, but what concerns me is not knowing what we might really need because we feel like we don't have the budget to pay for it.
And we do that, but I think what we saw in the past was we saw a duplication of the same activities. So where is the board going to go find their information? They're going to go to the schools, to the teachers, to the administration. And that's the same thing that we are doing in our budget creation process that we're bringing to you. Is we're doing that. I don't think that's a concern.
I'll tell you, my concern is that for us to have this dialogue, because it's not going to be an easy dialogue, and to have that dialogue on April 11th in preparation to go to an FAC meeting on April 17th, I just feel like that's too short of a time, because I know we're going to have opinions, we're going to maybe have some disagreements, which is completely fine, but I think it's good to have that time to digest it. I don't think we need to go through the spreadsheet. Y'all did a lot of work accumulating and compiling our information. I don't necessarily think that we need to do that. I think just hearing what you're hearing from your schools and just sharing that with us and having us have an open dialogue to say what is important, what don't you feel like you can fit into the budget that you think we might want to highlight. I just think to have that kind of conversation prior to April 11th would be something very valuable for us to do.
Why don't we let Ms. Landers and the superintendent discuss
As
this?
I was getting ready to say, listening to all of that, let the superintendent and I look at the dates in between there and try to find. It would likely, if we can work it out, it would likely be during the day, a work session during the day.
I think that's
to accommodate staff.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. But let us look at that, because
that would be great.
Okay,
I'd appreciate that.
all right. Is there any further business?
I know I'm killing you, and this could be something you can just say. We'll send you.
You've got 5 minutes.
Well, I'll take one. Can you quickly clarify in my head, not in my head, for the attendance zone timeline? Kind of, where we are, what we plan to do, like for surveys and for us, and looking at policies, just generically. You don't have to give me specific days. I just want to make sure in my head I'm thinking.
So for us, I think what we had put out there was the flexibility based on the feedback the surveys, which we don't have yet, haven't gone through
Oh,
all
yeah,
that
yes,
yet, is
yeah.
that the board would, yes, so the survey closes in March.
Right.
And then we would know a little deeper timeline, but the end drop dead timeline is by May, us having a decision on the zones. Prior to that, so I would say at the April board meeting, it could come in, we could have it in the March board meeting to talk about the transfer policies that we need to address and look at. So that's
just kind of thinking that our end of dime is May,
Yes.
but what figures out depending on what the survey results give.
yes, if we had to
And
make modifications.
So the only request I would have is that we do have one board meeting where we talk about, or one work session where we talk about policies, but then more than an hour later, we approve them. Does that make sense? I mean, I'd like for us to be able to have a work session where we actually talk and we delve
Sure.
into the policies, but then we don't have to vote on
On the
those
same night.
until the same.
Yeah.
And I don't
Yes.
know what those policy, is there a first reading, second reading issue with those, or does
No,
that
because
matter?
we're
Plenty
talking,
of time.
we're,
We're talking
we're
about a year.
a year and, we wouldn't even
Perfect.
have
You're
to do
right.
that.
Thank you.
We're a year in advance.
We're
of
well
all
ahead.
of
But
this.
it's better to have it.
Yes.
But no, I think when you're to your point, doing the zoning, you need to
Yes.
have that,
No,
right?
I think
so that
we
you
need,
know.
we need a work session just after we have the surveys back, just to look at the zoning and talk about policies.
Right.
And I made copies of the TLM report.
Oh, here's a copy of the TLM
Like to
report.
just have as I go through.
Thank you.
Is
And I
there
would-
any further business?
No.
If not, the work session stands adjourned.
Thank you.
That's Amy's.
Thank you.
Envelope folder.
I might knock this off.
I don't see community. I'm good.
Yes, we do.
Boy Scouts.
Everybody's outside.
We have a lot of recommendations.
Can you not hear all the?
We're gonna be doing all West recommendations for the next 3 months, just so you know.
I'm sorry.
We're gonna be doing all West,
Oh, yes, 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 yes,
and then
yes.
we also have our cheer groups tonight. so-
Hey, listen,
good.
I just need more time to sign certificate.
Yeah, I know, it's
Your hand's gonna be like this, not on the wall.
You need a stamp.
I got
I have a stamp. No, we're lifting weights and we're eating now. So this is our build-up time. So we look forward to all the running makes it hard.
Yes.
See, watch, Trent's probably gonna be like the heavyweight next year.
check. I've been watching the Olympics. Been hammering them against the ice a lot.
That would be my purse. I just said that.
What do you need? What do you need? The what thingy? Yep. I thought I put it in Mr. Manuel's. 1 second.
There it is.
One second, Miss Landers. I have to set.
Mr. Manuel edited one and gave it to you also? To shot that one? And then this is for Miss Landers.
Is there any recognition in there?
Yeah.
He didn't edit anything.
He did edit it. I thought it would be nice. It's okay.
No, he did, but I didn't give you the thing.
What did you do with it? That's okay. It's unedited. It's on
Oh, it's not in your folder? 1 second. You're welcome.
dedicated to the national.
You need a WhatsApp log?
They just threw a curveball at me.
One second. I have to switch on the mic when you say ready. Are you going to sit over there? No time to change now. That's okay. Are you doing it next time? Yes, I am. You are? Yeah. Okay. I'm waiting for Mr. Romano to sit.
Welcome, everyone. This is a beautiful site. Welcome tonight. We're going to call the meeting of the Germantown Municipal School District Board of Education to order. It is our tradition to do a moment of silence as we begin each meeting. But before we take that moment, from Columbine to Sandy Hook, and sadly now to Stoneman Douglas High School, we as a nation have experienced unspeakable tragedies. Our schools should be a safe haven for all of our children. We as a board were devastated last Wednesday at the news from Parkland, Florida. Our deepest sympathies, thoughts, and prayers are with the families of the victims of this horrendous crime. We ask that you join us tonight in a moment of silence to honor and in memory of all of those victims. If you will, please, a moment of silence. Thank you. If you will now please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Parker, will you please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First order of business is approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the agenda as printed. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Oaf?
Yes.
Chairman Landers?
Yes.
Thank you.
The agenda stands approved. Now to everybody's favorite part of the program, awards and recognitions. Superintendent Manuel?
So tonight we're going to do this a little different than we have because of the number of people being recognized, which is a good problem to have. So first, we're going to do all West recognitions, but then when we get ready to call our cheerleaders, we're going to call you individually, and if you'll just stand where you are, but then afterwards we're going to go out and have a picture with the board. So we can't have everybody come up here at once, otherwise we would be here all night. So we're going to call you one at a time where you stand up, and then we'll go out together. But first, we'd like to recognize our All West recognitions. Each year, Musical Education Associations puts on a large performance to showcase all the great things that are happening with music education in West Tennessee. They call it All West for short. The most talented and rehearsed players are selected to participate in honors choirs to work with guest conductors of great skill and prestige. This year, in our district, we placed 173 students in All West choirs, bands, and orchestras. This is an increase from last year and a testament to the hard work of our music teachers and students. This spring, we will be recognizing all West students at each school board meeting, but tonight we have the honor of recognizing the Riverdale Choir and the members who made All West. So if I call your name, if you would stand up, and this group of people that we recognize could come up. Colby Corcoran, is Colby here? Come on up, Colby. Abby Hetherington, Katie Scoogan, and Emily Wolke. And we'd like to recognize their teacher, Katie Caudle. Now, once again, for our large group, when I call your name, if you would stand up, and I'm going to read the names quickly, but then afterwards we're going to go out and take pictures in the larger area out there in the foyer. Cheerleading champions. And this one's kind of close to my heart because I have my daughters who both cheered, and it was a really special time. I miss those days when you have the show night. And I was lucky enough to get to come and see your show night and how wonderful you were. I knew you were going to do well. But that feeling before you go to that competition and know that you have put all this effort in and all this work in and you know you're going to be incredible, and then for you actually go down there and hit it, that's something special because the pressure that you feel in the competition and on that big stage for you to perform at this level, you're going to be successful in whatever you do because that amount of stress is preparing you for life. You're going to be able to tackle anything that you want to accomplish. And now for what I'm supposed to say. Our cheerleading teams exemplify the Germantown Municipal School District, athletic spirit, and prowess in the nation. There is no question that competitive cheerleading is a physically demanding sport. Our teams incorporate elements of dance, tumbling, and gymnastics to create performance routines. They're no stranger to the national victories, and this year is no exception, and we want to recognize all of our cheerleaders. But first, if we could have our sponsors and also Chris Crabtree stand up, our coach. Ryan Jackson could not be here tonight, and he also coaches at the high school level. But Miss Spurlock at the middle school, Kelsey Stapp, Melissa Gray, y'all spend hours, I know y'all sitting in the gyms, watching them go through these routines over and over again. You get ice for students who get hurt while they're practicing. You deal with parent concerns and issues. It is a demanding job, and I know that the amount of time that y'all put into this. I remember sitting on a bus with Chris talking about what can we do to make our cheer team even better, and I think Katie was in 6th grade, my oldest, and she's 20 now. And the only thing I need to do is keep you around, Chris. I think really what we've done is create a tradition of excellence and have incredible sponsors, incredible coaches who know what it takes to win. And also the parents. I know what y'all have done. I spent those days at the gym. I watched them from the loft tumbling down there. I watched my daughters succeed and fail and fall, and her stunt group didn't hit, and the pressure that you feel when they're not hitting it. So we also need to thank our parents because of the amount of time they spend driving you to the gyms for the tumbling and the practice too. So we're going to have Houston Middle School first. They were national champions and they placed second at Worlds. Adley Aaron, Marina Bailey, Meredith Bronson, stand when I call your name, Elizabeth Burke.
Stay standing.
Yes, stay standing. Caroline Campbell, Madison Carey, Jordan Causey, Ava Kate Christopher, Emma Davis, Emily Earhart, Hannah Griffin, Savannah Harden, Isabel Hirsch, Emma Johnson, Avery Kilpatrick, Ava Leslie, Sophie Lewis, Miller McKinster, Caroline Nunnery, Anna Thomas Pate, Caroline Reardon, Aaron Remork, Eason Sechrist, Cameron Tilley, Anna Vaughn, Anna Claire Wesky, Gabby West, and Virginia Williams. Congratulations for being national champions and placing second at Worlds. And y'all can sit down before we go take a picture. We have two teams at the high school. We have the silver team, which is non-tumbling, and we also have our black team, which is our varsity tumbling team. And both were very successful this year. On the Houston High School silver team, they placed second in the National JV non-tumbling division, and they were also world champions. So stand when I call your name. Ashton Bialowitz, Sydney Caldwell, Morgan Davis, Caitlin Dozier, Paige Foster, Ashton Gary, Caroline Grisani, Katie Grusin, Maddie Hines, Audrey Hill, Abby Lamberth, Olivia Litvin, Gracie McKinster, Sophie Knipp, Jordan Oxendine, Jada Phillips, Elizabeth Reentz, Kendallin Soren, Lauren Switcher, Caitlin Williamson, Josie Woody, Katie Upton, and Addie Williams. Congratulations. And then finally, our Houston High School black team, which is the super varsity, national champions and world champions. Two different competitions. Gracie Allen, Allie Bates, Lauren Burke, Keegan Shalafo, Carson Childress, Michaela Hartzell, Delaney Hayes, Macy Jobs, Caroline Jones, Kendi Kuhn, Brooke Lawson, Liza Leslie, Madeline Lewis, Melena Long, Neely McKinster, Taylor Mills, Abby Mulhay, Addie Newby, Emma Nicell, Jocelyn Primasius, Abby Grace Rogers, Olivia Scarmastro, Madeline Sells, Hattie Williamson, Kayla Yancey, and Anderson Perry. Congratulations. Once again, when you talk to people, when you're at the parks, and they hear that you're from Houston, it means something. Y'all are representing Germantown Municipal School District. You truly are an example of excellence always. Y'all are incredible. And with that, let's go take our pictures out in the foyer.
The whole board?
That was hard.
I guess they don't want to be, they don't want them, they probably don't want to be outnumbered with the girls, is what I'm thinking.
middle of that. And now the volume changed.
Did you get the name, Jason?
Do what?
He got the name.
Yes.
You're gonna add it now?
No, I did on the fly. That's what I'm saying. So I'm doing it real time.
Well, that was fun. That was really awesome. Awesome, awesome. Okay, we will come back to order. Next on our agenda would be the TLN update. Ms. Jones?
Wow, I get to follow that. We've had a very good kickoff to this year. Our board and superintendent attended the TSBA Day on the Hill on February 12th and 13th. It was a great trip, and we were able to attend 3 committee meetings and meet with 6 of our legislators. As we only get about 15 minutes with each legislator, we focused our discussion on several key items. The first being a bill that would extend the special ed, what I'd call voucher, it's actually called the individualized education account, to gifted students. We have spoken to Representative Mark White, who serves on one of the House Education Committees, and he does not believe that that bill will go anywhere in the House. So we're very comforted by that because gifted students make up about 40% of our student population. There's another bill that would require school districts or schools to employ 1 licensed social worker in each school, which we think is a great idea. However, we need funding that would go with that. So our message that we delivered to our legislators was that we would applaud this bill as long as it came with the money to fund a social worker in each school. Then there was a Senate resolution that would also direct public education, would direct intergovernmental relations to study the overall effects on public education relative to having multiple school districts operating in the same county. We are concerned with the direction of this resolution and the amount of work and money which could be involved in a direct study which would investigate an operating procedure which is effectively working not only in our state but across the nation as well. We've communicated that to our legislators, and we believe that that will also not go far, but we will be monitoring that. The Department of Education has reconvened its task force on TN Ready. They did add Representative White as a member. We met, the committee has met December 11th and had their second meeting on January 19th. I will be attending their 3rd meeting in Nashville on February 26th. Based on discussions with Representative White during our Day on the Hill, the task force is focusing on ways to reduce the time and amount of tests for our students. We will keep you updated on that. We're very hopeful that that is the direction they're moving in. And he actually did allow or have some Board of Education members in the meeting with us, which was great. Lastly, the Tennessee Board of Education added 2 new members from Shelby County late last year. The superintendent and I will be meeting with them in the next several weeks to understand their role and how we might connect with them so that the local school board's voice is brought into the meetings that they have on a quarterly basis, and so that we can better understand any potential policy changes that are coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Next order is the chairman's report. After the Parkland, Florida tragedy last week, we did put forth a letter to parents that covered quite a number of things, but it was the desire of the superintendent and I tonight to cover a few more points that we felt would be of great interest to parents and to the broader community. So I will begin the chairman's report with that portion. In light of the recent school tragedy in Florida, I would like to take a moment to focus on what services we provide for our families and students. At Germantown Municipal Schools, we value the development of the whole child, and we have been focused on social emotional development since the creation of our district. GMSD currently employs a total of 15 counseling and mental health staff across the district. This does include a licensed mental health clinician. Each school counselor is trained by mental health staff yearly on identification, prevention, and support of at-risk students. School counselors administer ongoing lessons in the classroom setting, as well as provide support and responsive services in the form of small group and individual counseling to students in need. School social workers and counselors work together to provide crisis assessments at the school level, as well as referring to outside agencies that assist in providing additional help and services. As part of our crisis intervention, any email or situation that has a social emotional component is referred to our counseling department along with the administration to provide support as needed. Families who need support are also given a PRO or Parent Resource Opportunity Packet that has all available community resources and crisis services, including phone numbers, websites, and locations to access services. We take every tip or situation very seriously and are constantly working behind the scenes to serve families and students. If anyone needs more information about the services we provide, please contact our licensed clinical social worker, Mrs. Law, at the district office. Her number is 901-752-7877, or their school-level counselors. It has been a very busy month. We began the month, the superintendent and I and a number of the cabinet, by attending the education work group with the city. It is a group that meets several times a year and is comprised of the city department representatives and the GMSD cabinet. Earlier in February on the 3rd, I also attended the Education Commission's annual Battle of the Brains. If you're not familiar with it, it's a great opportunity to showcase some of our best and brightest. It was a wonderful day. We had 7 teams competing, with the winning team coming from our own Houston High School. So we are truly blessed to have such amazing talent in all of our schools. Participated in the GMSD Community Tour Day, which is on February 7th. Again, it was a wonderful day, great day to show off our award-winning school system, and we had participants that included prospective students and their families, as well as interested community members. Met with the superintendent, Mayor Palazzolo, and City Administrator Patrick Lawton on the 8th of February to discuss the district's upcoming year and associated projects. Took part in the Leadership Germantown's class of 2018's education panel. This has become an annual opportunity for the board to speak with the newest leadership class about the school system and the great things that we're accomplishing in our schools and future projects. We do want to offer sincere thanks to Alderman Mary Ann Gibson for arranging this opportunity for the superintendent and the entire board. Also participated, as Ms. Jones told you, in the Tennessee School Boards Association Day on the Hill in Nashville, and as always, it was a wonderful opportunity to advocate for our teachers and our students. Then, probably it was a wonderful day until I got home and heard the news, but Valentine's Day was spent at Dogwood, and it was truly a day I will cherish for a long time. I began the day by getting to read to Miss Dancy's classroom, and one of my tour guides was Mrs. Parker's granddaughter, Addison. I got an opportunity to tour the school and meet many of the terrific teachers at Dogwood, and finally enjoyed a lunch with Principal Price, a number of the staff, the PTO leaders, and most importantly, 4 really terrific students from the 4th and 5th grades, one of whom I am certain I will be able to see her receive her Oscar one day. She was very animated and talented and enthusiastic. So it was a wonderful day for the most part on Valentine's Day. So that concludes the chairman's report. And we will move into the financial report. Mr. Jones, I didn't forget.
Okay, you have the financial reports for the month ending January 31st, 2018. First, in our school operating fund, total assets, liabilities, and fund balance at $12.1 million. Property tax revenue collections in the operating fund total $2.8 million for the month. This represents 18% of the total budgeted for the year. The majority of property tax revenues is received during the months of January, February, and March. As a result of the additional collections, $2 million was transferred into our local government investment pool account for investing. Federal projects, reimbursements due from the Tennessee Department of Education at $273,000. The cafeteria fund reporting total assets, liabilities, and fund balance at $181,000, with Aramark reporting a profit year-to-date at $105,000. So we hope that trend continues. Capital projects, total assets, liabilities, and fund balance at $1.9 million. The health insurance fund, $2.2 million. The OPEB trust at $2.5 million. And the district made their contribution, or annual contribution, into the OPEB trust fund at $735,000 for the year. And finally, the general fixed asset account group, total assets at $70.9 million. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Superintendent's report, Mr. Manuel.
And as Ms. Landers covered what we do for our students to really focus on the whole child, I'd like to focus on some of the safety precautions and then talk about where do we go from here, because I think that the concern for all of us is that this is not a trend that's going away. This is a concern for us that these tragedies continue to happen in the United States, and we want to be the best prepared that we can if this ever happened in our district. So I would like to talk about a few of the things that I released in the letter, and then talk about some of the steps that we're taking proactively moving forward. So the state law currently requires 11 fire drills, 2 during the first 30 days and 1 per month after that. Then there are 4 safety educational announcements that also have to be completed during the school year, and 4 other drills. 1 must be an armed intruder drill with the involvement of local law enforcement. 2 must be earthquake drills, and 1 can be the school's choice. We also have to have 1 annual CPR and AED drill. This is something that Mr. Cathian and myself have always talked about. We were talking about the fact that the last time that there was a death in a school fire was in the 1950s. But when we talk about the number of deaths that have happened in school shootings, it seems like the requirements for drills does not match our current reality. So I think that's something as a board that we need to talk about legislation or the way it reads and the requirements, because I don't want to see what typically happens where we get more drills in the school district and they keep all the old ones on the book. We should have a balance that mirrors more what we think that we need in our communities. But also something that I think is also very special is with the partnership with the city, we have a school resource officer in all of our schools. And some of those are also members of the SWAT team. So that's something that you can take pride in our school district, that we do have qualified staff there. We have an overall district emergency plan, and each school has an individual emergency plan and a team that dictates responses to all manners of school emergency. We have signs that indicate state law for check-in procedures and carrying firearms. Front desk check-in includes background checks for all visitors through a Raptor system. We have security alarm systems that detect unauthorized entry after hours. A district-wide emergency radio and communication system, cameras at each school. I want to reiterate that we have an anonymous alert program in our district, and that any time that one of these tips hits our website, it comes to myself, it comes to our staff, it comes to school staff, and we immediately investigate those. So I would like to say that we're better than the FBI in the fact that if we get a tip, we are going to investigate, and we're going to make sure that we have done our due diligence to prevent that from happening. Then we also have an email monitoring system that looks at keywords in emails. And so there are many times that we contact the principal and say, we saw this in an email, we saw this information that's included. And like Ms. Landers read, we get our social workers involved. And before those students leave that school that day, we have staff that are contacting those students. And then we have staff training each year to recognize warning signs. But I'm very tentative in going through that list of things that we've done because I don't want you to think that we're not being proactive and looking forward to what we're doing. We're going to meet with all the administration at our schools to talk about how can we improve the process. And I know that the board has received emails from people talking about what are we doing on days where we have a 5th grade promotion or a kindergarten promotion, or we're having parties at the schools. How can we control that process? So those are the details that we want to look at. What can we do during transitions? And so we're going to work with Lieutenant Scheel, who's works for the district, and he oversees all of our SROs to really develop a process, and he's also a member of the SWAT team, to also develop a process in each of our schools that looks at every possible scenario so that we can know that we're prepared. So know that that is going to be something that we're going to be releasing to the community in the next few months, talking about the changes that we've made, the procedures that we've gone through, and really talking about the training that we can do for our families. So talk about if they arrived to school and saw, for example, that there was a sign out that said that the school's on lockdown as they're getting ready to drop off their child, what would be their expectations? So those are the things that are coming in the next few months to really help prepare our staff and our community in the event that this type of tragedy happened here. And that concludes my superintendent's report.
Next on our agenda is citizens to be heard. Citizens are asked to complete a card indicating their desire to address the Germantown Board of Education. Give the completed card to the executive secretary seated at the front of the room. Comments must be constructive. The school board will not entertain any disrespectful comments regarding elected officials. Citizens will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. Time is subject to change as determined by the chairman. We've received one request to address the board this evening. Mrs. Natalie Williams. Ms. Williams, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Superintendent Manuel, for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Natalie Williams, and I live at 8049 Neshoba Road, Germantown 38138. Tonight, I want to tell you the story of a teacher. She married a man who was also a teacher in a high school in Georgia. One spring morning, he had a student walk in his classroom, pull a gun out of his backpack, and lay it on his desk. Thankfully, that was as far as the incident progressed. The teacher's husband was calm and collected, and the administration took the situation from there. This same teacher has a brother who attended Heritage High School. When in May 1999, a young man came in with a rifle and shot 6 classmates. The incident ended when the assistant principal detained the young man. This same teacher sat in a classroom with her students and watched their faces in horror as Columbine unfolded on the TV in the classroom. At that time, we changed dress codes, we added locks, we performed drills, so we all felt a little safer and better, but has anything really changed? Today, this teacher returned to her school, and she had not seen her students since last Wednesday. This was the first time she had seen them since hearing the news of the Florida school shooting. She asked herself, am I doing everything I can by these children? You see, the teacher with the husband who had the gun in his classroom, and the teacher who had the brother at the high school with an active shooter, that teacher is me. I do not believe I'm doing everything I can. So I am here to work with you, and I have a call to action. The time for this discussion is now, and I'm very encouraged by the words that I just heard from our superintendent. This goes beyond party and politics. The children in our schools don't have a vote. They're not a member of a political party or platform, so it is up to us to speak and act on their behalf. Germantown Municipal School District has led the way across the state with the move towards local control, municipal schools, adjusting start times, community engagement forums, superior athletics, and ACT scores. Now it is time we lead the way regarding school and student safety. I ask that the superintendent and board chair call upon educators, parents, and other superintendents and board chairs across Shelby County to meet and come up with ways our students can be safer at school. We should not keep the solutions here. We need to share this information. Working together, I have confidence GMSD and Shelby County can present solutions to school districts and legislators across the state and the country to improve student safety in our schools. I look forward to being a part of the next steps as we here in GMSD and Shelby County lead the way. I hope to hear from you very soon.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Next item of business is the consent agenda. Would the board like the chair to read the items on the consent agenda? Approval of the minutes, the annual policy review for revision of policy SBO 1.101 and HR 5.201 after second reading. 8C is annual review, revision of policies after first reading, which we covered during the work session. 8D, approval of the sale of surplus items. 8E, school fees and activity costs. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve all the items in the consent agenda.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve all items listed on the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Oaf?
Yes.
Chairman Landers?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Thank you.
That moves us into board action items. First item up is the MOU with the City of Germantown for the GMSD Administration Building. The chair will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the MOU between the City of Germantown and the Germantown Municipal School District to fund the construction of a central office administrative building.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the MOU between the City of Germantown and the Germantown Municipal School District to fund the construction of a central office administrative building. Is there discussion? Superintendent, would you like to add anything?
Just that this is something that we've been moving forward for a long time because we currently lease space at the cost of $156,000 a year in the Care for Shopping Center. And so the permanency of our central office is in question. I don't think that's a long-term solution for us. So I think the staff and the would be very grateful for this move to something more permanent.
Thank you. Is there further discussion?
I think just one thing to add that the superintendent reiterated at our work session is the fact that this, from an expense impact, once you take into account the modular classrooms that we will be taking off lease as well as our current lease payments, we're hopeful that this will be very neutral to our current situation, which I think is a huge plus for us being able to actually own the district office.
Ms. Fisher?
I'll just add one more thing to Ms. Jones, too, is that with the mortgage payments, then we will own this property or the building in 12 years. Mm-hmm. And so instead of paying rent, we will be paying towards something we can own, and then we can use those funds for other things after that.
Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Oaf?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Landers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next is a modification of the 2018-2019 instructional calendar. The chair will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the modifications to the GMSD 2018-19 instructional calendar.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the modifications to the GMSD 2018-19 instructional calendar. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I think there is some concern that we've heard from some parents from emails and phone calls and texts regarding the reduction of instructional days from 180 to 177. And I had similar concerns coming into the work session, and I have great faith that Dr. Park has done her research, and that at this point we will not, our children will not feel the impact of the loss of the 3 instructional days. However, I feel assured that if that were the case, if we were to see that kind of change, that Dr. Park and Superintendent Manuel will make the necessary changes in the following year to make the adjustments needed. I find it very exciting that we are providing this opportunity for teachers to have some flexibility, and I applaud all of the work that Superintendent Manuel and Dr. Park has done to make these recommendations, so thank you.
Further discussion? Ms. Fisher?
As a board member, I don't believe in just making changes because other districts are making those. I believe that we should be doing what's best for our teachers and our students that are in our seats in our schools. And the teachers in our district have requested that the district look at providing additional professional development days. The district came back with a recommendation tonight, and just for those who may not be aware, one of the main changes is that Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving will be professional development days. Historically, this is a low attendance day anyway in our schools, and so it will be turned into professional development days for our teachers. Another change too is historically our teachers have had the day after parent-teacher conferences as a PD day, and we had stopped that this past year with the change in the calendar, and they've actually requested that we implement that again, and so that is being done. When you look at, also we had a survey done by our district that asked our teachers about PD. It showed that they would like more PD to support them and their abilities to implement the instructional strategies that they need for their students. In addition, we had the Advanced Ed Accreditation team came in, and one of their recommendations is that we implement a comprehensive system-wide professional development plan. And so that is what is taking place, is that we are, the district has put together a comprehensive professional development plan that starts at the district level, the school level, and then we'll go down to individual teachers. I think as a district we do need a system-wide sustainable professional development plan for our teachers, and I believe the changes to the calendar will help us improve as a district. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Dr. Park, would you like to add anything? If there's no further discussion, roll call.
Ms. Wolf?
Yes.
Ms. Wolf, sorry. Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Chairman Landers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the approval of the purchase and installation of rooftop HVAC units at Farmington Elementary School.
I move to approve the purchase and installation of replacement HVAC rooftop units, exhaust fans, and hoods at Farmington Elementary School in the amount of $599,445 with Train Company.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the purchase and installation of replacement HVAC rooftop units, exhaust fans, and hoods at Farmington Elementary School in the amount of $599,445 with Train Company. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Wolf?
Yes.
Chairman Landers?
Yes.
Thank you.
That concludes all of the business. Next is announcements. Just a reminder that our Houston High Mustang Theater production of Curtains opens this Friday at 7 p.m. There are additional shows scheduled for Saturday and Monday, as well as a Sunday afternoon matinee. Please go out and support this amazing program and our very talented students. We also have our next work session is March the 1st. Will be dedicated to talking about our capital projects for the future. Then on March the 12th, we have spring break till the 16th, and our next meeting of the Board of Education will be Monday, March the 19th. If there is no further business to become this body, then this meeting stands adjourned.